The apartment was quiet, almost unbearably so. The soft cries of a newborn pierced the stillness, a tiny, urgent reminder of life and responsibility. Anna sat on the edge of the small couch, cradling her son, rocking him gently. The room smelled faintly of baby powder and laundry detergent. Outside, the city hummed faintly, indifferent, unaware of the storm that had just passed inside this small home. She remembered the words vividly, the cold finality in her husband's voice. "With someone like you, you'll never get anywhere in life." He had spat before slamming the door behind him. The sound of his footsteps fading down the corridor seemed to echo in the apartment, leaving a silence heavier than any words could carry. Anna's eyes lingered on the tiny bundle in her arms. Her son's fingers curled weakly around hers, his breaths shallow but steady. She felt the weight of him. Not just the physical weight, though he was small and fragile, but the weight of responsibility, of a life entirely dependent on her. And in that moment, that weight was terrifying and sacred all at once. She rose slowly, careful not to jostle him, and moved toward the small kitchenette. The morning sunlight spilled through the half-open blinds, dust motes dancing in the beams of light. She set the baby in a soft blanket on the counter, keeping one hand gently on his chest, and began preparing a bottle. Each movement was deliberate, precise, almost meditative, as if performing a ritual to ward off the panic creeping in at the edges of her mind. The apartment was sparse, just the essentials. A small crib stood in the corner, a dresser with mismatched drawers, and the couch where she now perched. There were no frills, no luxury, no sign of the life her husband had expected her to create alongside him. But this little space was hers and her son's, and somehow that was enough for now. Anna's mind wandered back to the moment he had left. His eyes, filled with anger and frustration, had scanned her as if searching for flaws, for inadequacies he could blame. She had tried to reason with him, voice trembling but firm. "I'm trying. We're trying. This is a new life. Our son." But he had cut her off, dismissing her words like they were meaningless noise. "Someone like you will never get anywhere," he had said, his tone final, his hand on the doorknob already. "I can't stay here and watch you fail." And just like that, he had gone. Anna had stared at the closed door long after the sound of his footsteps had faded. She had felt a sharp, hollow ache in her chest, a mixture of heartbreak and fear. But then she had looked down at her son, sleeping soundly in the blanket she had wrapped him in, and the ache shifted, softened into a quiet determination. She lifted him gently and settled back on the couch, rocking him slowly. His tiny hand grazed her cheek, and she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt before, resilience. She didn't have the support of the man who had promised to share this life with her. She didn't have reassurance from anyone else. But she had him, and she had herself. And that had to be enough. Hours passed in a blur of feeding, rocking, and quiet observation. Anna learned the rhythm of his breathing, the subtle movements that indicated hunger or discomfort, the tiny signs that required her attention. Her own exhaustion was immense. Her body ached from sleepless nights and relentless responsibility, but somehow, amidst the fatigue, there was clarity. She realized that her husband's words, meant to wound and belittle, were powerless here. They did not define her. She was learning to define herself in real time, shaping a life for her son and for herself, one small, deliberate action at a time. By late afternoon, the city outside had begun to shift. The sunlight softened, and the hum of traffic grew steadier, a distant pulse beneath the quiet of her home. Anna looked down at her son again, now asleep against her chest. She felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest, a sense of possibility, fragile but undeniable. She did not know what the future held, nor did she know how she would survive the challenges ahead. But she knew one thing: she would not give up. Not on him, not on herself. As she gently laid him in the crib, Anna made a silent promise. She would learn, she would fight, she would grow stronger than she had ever imagined. The world outside might have judged her unworthy, unprepared, incapable. But here, in this small room, with her son's steady breathing and her own determination, she found a quiet, unwavering power. And in that power, she realized something profound. Even abandoned, even underestimated, even alone, a mother could create life, nurture hope, and build a future from nothing but love and resilience. The first few days alone had been a blur for Anna. She barely slept, waking every hour to feed her son, check his breathing, and soothe his cries. The apartment felt simultaneously too small and impossibly heavy, the walls pressing in with silence that reminded her of her husband's absence. Every time the door clicked shut behind a neighbor or the wind rattled a window, she flinched, half expecting him to return, but he never did. Morning light spilled into the room, illuminating the cluttered space. A stack of laundry half folded, a few bottles of formula lined on the counter, and the small crib in the corner where her son now slept, head turned toward the window. Anna moved silently, careful not to disturb him, yet her mind raced with worries. How would she manage work, life, money, and the endless responsibility of a newborn alone? She made a small breakfast for herself, too tired to eat much, and sipped lukewarm tea while listening to her son stir in the crib. Every soft whimper sent a jolt through her chest. She bent over, scooping him into her arms, feeling the tiny weight of him settle against her. His fingers curled weakly around hers, and she felt a mix of exhaustion and fierce determination. He needed her, and that alone was reason enough to keep going. The apartment phone rang, startling her. She picked it up to hear a neighbor's voice. "Anna, I just wanted to check on you. Are you managing okay?" I'm fine," Anna said, her voice quiet but firm. She didn't mention how many times she had cried into the empty kitchen sink or how often she had wished for even a moment's help. "Thank you." After hanging up, she stared at her reflection in the window for a moment. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, cheeks pale from sleepless nights. Yet beneath the exhaustion, something hardened, something resolute. She could survive this. She had to survive this. For herself, for her son. By midday, the city outside the window buzzed faintly, indifferent to her struggles. Anna bundled her son and stepped outside for a brief walk, letting the sunlight touch her face and the cool air brush against her skin. She navigated the crowded sidewalks carefully, eyes scanning for potential dangers, people who might bump into her stroller, or any hint of trouble. Her son cooed softly, tiny eyes bright and trusting, and she felt a surge of purpose. He relied on her entirely, and that responsibility, heavy as it was, gave her a strange strength. Back home, she spent hours researching, making lists of what she needed for him, and how she could manage finances. She scrolled through online forums, reading stories of single mothers who had thrived despite impossible odds. Some had left abusive partners, some had survived poverty, others had fought society's judgment to provide for their children. Each story, each struggle, inspired a flicker of hope within her. Maybe she could do it too. Maybe she could build a life for her son without him. Late afternoon, fatigue pressed against her shoulders, but Anna refused to rest fully. She bathed her son, carefully lifting him from the small basin, wrapping him in a soft towel, humming a lullaby she hadn't sung in years. He smiled sleepily up at her, and she felt a flicker of warmth spread through her chest, a quiet reminder that even amidst hardship, small joys existed. As night fell, the apartment grew still again, but this time Anna felt a difference. She felt alive, present, capable. The cries of her son were no longer just a source of panic. They were a reminder of why she had to keep going, why she had to be strong. She had always feared being alone, feared failing, feared that life might crush her beneath its weight. But tonight, as she watched her son sleep peacefully, she realized something important. She was already stronger than she had believed. She sat beside him, holding his tiny hand in hers, whispering promises into the quiet room. "I will protect you. I will love you. I will make sure you are safe and happy." Each word resonated, not just for him, but for her. They were vows that anchored her, a quiet determination that no force outside their small apartment could shake. The city outside hummed on, indifferent, but Anna no longer cared about judgments, about expectations, or about what her husband had said. His words, meant to wound, to diminish her, no longer held power over her. She was building her life, one small, deliberate action at a time, and no one could stop her. As the night deepened, she finally allowed herself to lie down beside her son, letting his warmth seep into her exhausted body. Sleep came slowly, hesitant, but with it came a sense of calm she hadn't felt in days. Alone, yes, but stronger, determined, and fiercely capable of facing whatever tomorrow would bring. Anna realized, in that quiet, ordinary apartment, that a mother's love could be more powerful than any words of doubt, any absence, any betrayal. And she understood now. Survival wasn't just about food, shelter, or comfort, it was about courage, resilience, and the unwavering will to protect and nurture the life that depended on her. Weeks passed, and the apartment that had once felt suffocating began to feel like a sanctuary. Anna had learned its rhythm, the quiet hum of the radiator, the creak of the floorboards under her feet, the subtle signs of her son's moods and needs. Every day was a challenge, but every day also brought small victories. A night the baby slept for 4 hours straight, a successful attempt at cooking a full meal, a walk outside without feeling paralyzed by fear. She had also grown stronger in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her husband's cruel words, "Someone like you will never get anywhere," echoed in her mind sometimes, but their sting had dulled. They no longer defined her. Instead, they had ignited something inside her, determination. She refused to let anyone, not even the man who had promised to share this life, decide her worth. One crisp morning, she bundled her son and went to the park nearby. The city was waking, the streets filled with the clatter of shoes, the hum of buses, the chatter of neighbors. Anna watched her son's eyes widen at the world, the rustle of leaves, the bright colors of flowers, the wagging tails of dogs. His laughter, a soft gurgle at first, turned into full, delighted squeals as he kicked his tiny legs. Anna smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in months. This small moment of joy, was hers and his. It wasn't the grandeur of a life shared with someone else, it wasn't wealth or status, it wasn't recognition from the world. It was real, it was theirs, and it was enough. When she returned home, she found an envelope slipped under the door. Curious, she opened it to find a small check and a note, for the baby. From someone who believes in you. She didn't know who it was, but the gesture, anonymous, kind, selfless, brought tears to her eyes. It reminded her that the world still held unexpected allies, quiet supporters who could restore faith in humanity. That evening, she sat on the couch, the baby in her arms, reflecting on how far she had come. She had learned to change diapers with one hand while balancing a bottle in the other. She had learned to soothe crying in the middle of the night, to cook, to manage money, to navigate the city with a stroller. Most importantly, she had learned to trust herself, to understand that her instincts, her love, her patience, and her courage were more than enough. Then came a knock at the door. Anna froze, heart skipping a beat. It had been months since her husband had walked out, and she hadn't expected to see him again. Carefully, she opened the door to find a neighbor standing there, holding a bundle wrapped in a blanket. "I found this on the stairs," the neighbor said, voice gentle. "Thought it might belong to you." Anna unwrapped it to reveal a small, carefully chosen toy and a note. For him, so he always knows how loved he is. Tears welled in her eyes. Even strangers could recognize the love she poured into her son, the sacrifices she had made, and the strength she had shown. As she held the toy, she felt something shift inside her. For the first time since her husband had left, she didn't feel abandoned or defeated. She felt seen, not just by others, but by herself. She had survived the darkness, and now she could thrive in the light. The next morning, she decided to take her son to the city library. She wanted him to see the world beyond their apartment, beyond the streets, beyond the small boundaries she had once feared. The library was bright, filled with children's laughter and the scent of books. She watched as he crawled toward the colorful picture books, eyes wide with wonder. Anna realized that these moments, these tiny steps toward independence and growth, were victories far greater than anything her husband could have given her. She didn't need his validation. She didn't need his presence. She had love, courage, and resilience, and with those, she could face anything. As the sun began to set, painting the city in soft oranges and pinks, Anna carried her son back home. He rested against her shoulder, his tiny hand clutching hers. She glanced down at him, heart swelling with emotion. "We did it, little one," she whispered. "We're going to be okay. We're going to have a life full of love, and nothing can take that away from us." For the first time in months, she felt an unshakable sense of peace. She had been abandoned, doubted, and underestimated, but she had risen. Alone, yes, but stronger, braver, and capable beyond measure. She smiled down at her son, her tiny miracle, and knew that together, they could face whatever the world threw at them. And in that quiet apartment, filled with warmth and the soft breathing of her son, Anna understood a truth deeper than any she had ever known. A mother's love could move mountains, withstand storms, and forge a future from nothing but courage, determination, and heart.